You mentioned Harry Reid in some trouble in Nevada. Take a look at the ad that one of the ads that's now up in his home state of Nevada, and we'll bring back with two key strategists.
The nation's biggest construction project, 10,000 construction workers, 12,000 permanent jobs. And when it looked like City Center was going to shut down, Harry Reid stepped up.
And we're joined now on Top Line by Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas, Republican strategist Ron Bonjean. And first of all, Ron, how much trouble is Harry Reid in Nevada?
Oh, he's in an enormous amount of trouble. I mean, when you put up an ad this far away from the elections in 2010, it's a big signal that he's in a lot of trouble. And, you know, frankly, the two Republican challengers right now are in a primary, lead him in the polls. I think you could put a ham sandwich against Harry Reid right now and lead in the polls.
Chris, is it a problem for him to be majority leader at the same time you're running for re-election? Does that square?
I think it's always going to be a bit of a problem because you have conflicting goals. One, you're trying to basically help the president's agenda, help the Democratic Party's agenda, and then you have to deal with your own constituents in Nevada. Listen, it's a year out. I mean, talking about any candidate being in trouble a year out is laughable on its face. It's just ridiculous. Now, I think that the smart thing about doing the ads is, listen, I think part of this is not about, you know, in terms of he's not going to have a primary challenger, he's not going to have a problem with money, but I think it's also to basically make it less likely that the two challengers can raise money or are seen as formidable. So it's kind of a smart thing to do. But it's a year out. I'm not going to worry about it.
I'm not sure Rick Santorum would agree that saying candidates in trouble a year out is laughable on its face. But I take your point. He clearly has plenty of time here to rehabilitate. Yeah. But I do want to get at the other ad he's running is a biographical spot. This guy's been the senator from Nevada for quite a while. I know there's a whole new influx of population there. But if you have to reintroduce yourself to voters, that indicates to me that they have a perception of you that is bad. No, what do you?
Right. No, people don't really know who he is, and that's a big signal to Republicans across the country for activists to send money into these challengers. A lot of national money is going to flow into this race. Harry Reid might raise a lot of money, but you know these Republicans will too, and I think he's really in a lot of trouble.
Well, Harry Reid's big challenge now is going to be health care, clearly, and they spent so much time in the debate this week in the Finance Committee to finally get one Republican on board. Chris, how real is the threat from the left to your mind? Are liberals, do they have to be courted still? Do they have to be brought on board? Is there a chance that some of them could actually vote against the health care bill?
I think it's real. I mean, I think there's you know, just to be frank about it, I think there's real disagreement within the Democratic Party, within the country to some extent about the public option. You know, to me, I look at it very simply. It's not a question to me of whether you're for or against the public option. It's which policy works. The smart politics here is not to sit there and fixate on the short term, okay, we can pass this with 60. If it ends up being a weaker policy and it doesn't solve the problem, that ends up being bad politics down the road. And so I think, you know, this is going to be, I think, the struggle. I think there is going to be some momentum towards the public option in a very perverse, weird way. The insurance companies, the insurance industry's report helped that. So I think you're going to see more momentum towards a public option.
Because you can ignore them now. You don't have to make them part of the
I think there's more of a momentum now towards a public option with a trigger, maybe even a full public option.
Ron, do you agree with Chris's analysis there? And does Olympia Snow's vote in Finance Committee make it more likely that it's not going to be this kind of robust public option that the Liberals want, but that they're going to have to hew to this, if there is a public option, her idea of a trigger?
Well, I think it's a huge game of teeter-totter here. I mean, if you take the public option off, then some people get off and it goes this way. If you keep the public option on, then you're
not just Olympia Snow we're talking about.
Right, and the Olympia Snow vote actually did nothing for these moderates. They didn't come on board. Actually, they were increasingly skeptical. I mean, the Senate Finance Committee version is the best of the worst to a whole lot of people, and it's just going to get worse from there. I mean, it's very nerve-wracking to Republicans who would like to be more participating in the game, and they've just been left out of the process.
And how big of a problem do you think it'll be for Democrats if they end up having to do this just with Democratic votes?
Huge problem. Right now, seniors and independents are really dissatisfied. If this drags out the way it did in the Senate Finance Committee and goes right till December 23rd, going into the next year, having independents and seniors not happy with you on a bill that they're confused about, and you're in an election year, is not where you want to be.
Completely wrong. I mean, the reality here is it's completely wrong. The reality here is if the president and the Democratic Party pass health care reform, and the American people see this as significant reform, he's going to get a huge bump, as will the Democratic Party. It's a problem that's been ignored for decades. By the way, this notion that somehow the American people are somehow against the public option, the polls don't support it.
Yeah,
somehow they're against health care reform, they don't support it.
I would look at what the Republicans did with Medicare. Seniors were against it. They didn't like it. The plan worked, and Republicans didn't get credit for it. I think going into next year, the Democrats and Obama they're going to have to keep explaining the bill and the details, and that's not where you want to be.
All right, Chris Kofinas, Democrat, Republican Ron Bonjean. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks so much. Be sure to tune into George on Sunday for this week. That does it for this edition of Top Line. Click us on again next week.
Twitter.com/TheNote. Keep it going. We didn't have to talk about the balloon boy or whatever.
That was